Hello, good morning, everybody, and welcome to the 2023 Healthy Longevity Global Innovator Summit. My name is Jessica Ramela Roman. I will be the moderator for this session, and I look forward to learn more about the project of our innovators in 2023. I'm an associate professor at Florida International University in Miami in the Department of Biomedical Engineering. My research focuses in biophotonics, which is the development of optical techniques and particularly imaging to the study of biological molecules, cells, and tissue. So the organizer have asked me to share with you some of my research, which is focused on healthcare innovation inequalities, particularly in the context of wearable devices and their use in a management of chronic disease. And again, I want to really thank the organizers. It's very exciting for me to be here and to share with you some of my work. So I came to this topic because I'm part of a research center called PATSUP, which stands for the Precise Advanced Technologies and Health System for Underserved Populations. And it was funded by the National Science Foundation, NSF, in 2017. So the goal of PATSUP is to change the paradigm for health in underserved communities by developing new and cost-effective technologies at the point of care, including wearable. So in these underserved communities, chronic disease is increasing, and it's a major cause of disability, even for young people. And of course, it leads to poor quality of life, shortened longevity, and high healthcare expenditure. So if we look our underserved population, we notice, of course, a great diversity. But we can see that there is also a great disparity in health. So if we look, this is specifically for the US population, but we can see that relative to the white population, an African American adult is 40% more likely to be obese and 60% more likely to have diabetes and 30% more likely to have cardiovascular disease. Similarly, if we look at the Latino and Hispanic adult compared to a white American, we see that they are 15% more likely to be obese and 65% more likely to be diabetic. So the burden of this chronic disease is a great challenge, and it requires the development of technologies and cost-effective technologies that can be accessed by all. It's an issue of tech equity, and so that we can reduce also the cost of hospitalization and the burden to the overall system. So, but the main message here is that as we develop these new technologies, wearable devices and point-of-care devices, we need to account for the diversity in our population and be sure that their functionality is equal across all diverse community, all the diverse community. And this is, really a message that I want to convey here. It's important for all innovators. And in the US, or in the world, we have arrived at a turning point, I think, for tech equity, where we have realized that there is bias in algorithms and systems that were developed probably for a limited group. So in my field of biophotonics, we've seen this clearly during COVID, where, for example, an optics-based device like the pulse oximeter has shown to have lower functionality when used by individuals with a higher skin tone. And my lab more recently has also suggested that this is true also for individuals with high level of obesity. So it's an important issue because we rely on these optical devices for medical intervention. So in the case of the pulse oximeter, for example, during COVID, we were using these devices to test lung function and complication of COVID. So similarly, when we use wearable, on our day-to-day activity, I have one here, we rely on this information, on the heart rate information, and pulse oximetry, on the oximetry information, to make informed decision for our health. And so we need these devices to be accurate for all. My lab particularly, we have developed a set of computational tools to test how wearable devices function across population, and we test the most famous. You can think about names in your head, but the one that we see on each other every day. And we have shown that some of these devices had a substantial loss of optical signal, up to, for example, 60% for some of them, which of course, as we lose the optical signal, we also increase the noise, and we lower the functionality of the devices. So of course, this is some preliminary work. There is a lot of work that needs to be done to confirm these findings and to really ascertain how because there are new devices coming out every year, and I think the wearable community is now aware of some of these limitations and is changing things, so which is great. But in my lab, we are currently conducting a study on individuals of various skin tone and different level of obesity to really test how the wearable devices function, with the goal ultimately to improve their functionality for all. So just a little bit about my work, but I now want to move on to our speakers. Then today we will hear from the Catalyst Award winning projects. They are particularly focused on achieving health equity and reducing health disparities. Of course, alongside the primary aim of improving health as people age. So the format is that each speaker will deliver a brief remark about their Catalyst project, and as well as its relation to health equity. And each speaker will have about 5 minutes. And at the end, we'll have an open discussion with the panel, and we'll be able to answer some of your questions. And that's it. I'm looking forward to hear about your work and to have at the end a lively discussion on this topic. So let me introduce the first speaker, which is Dr. Antonio Nunzio D'Angelo. Dr. Angelo is sponsored by EIT Health. So with no further ado, please tell us about your project and its relation to health equity. Thank you, Dr.
Thank you, Jessica, for the nice introduction, and good morning, everybody. So I'm not a doctor, I'm an engineer. I've developed since 2020 an incisional negative pressure wound therapy device to be used to reduce the insurgence of complication in the post-operative care. Mainly, we are talking about surgical site infection and dehiscence. Because we found out that the current gold standard, so devices that are already on the market today and are used, they are a little too much of drawbacks. And the first of them is the cost. So current devices are extremely costly, and therefore their usage is limited. So we have developed, and produced Dryum, a device that is completely mechanical. So here you have the suction device. You can see it really fits in one hand, and you just need one thumb to operate it. It's really simple. That then is connected to this advanced medication, to this wound dressing that we have also developed. The suction device will produce a constant negative pressure during the whole time of the treatment. So as the device is already on the market, so as the medical consensus, we have a complete constant negative pressure. We have two versions, one of minus 125 millimeters of mercury and one of minus 80 millimeters of mercury. So the operator can choose which pressure to be used in this case. We developed this device to finally have an incisional negative pressure wound therapy device that is tailored to reduce the complications. So not a device that is adapted from chronic wound care, but a device that was made because was intended to treat surgical incision. By being completely mechanical, we drastically reduce the production cost of our device, and therefore the selling price of our device is 60% less of what the closest competitor, I'm not making any names at the moment, the closest competitor is marketed today. But we are not shy on performance. We have exactly the same pressure performance, and we have increased performance in the wound dressing because we used an engineered 3D spacer that has a reduced electrostatic adhesion. So the adhesion of the spacer onto the wound is really low. Therefore, when the operator will change the wound dressing, there's not going to be any trauma for the patient. So there's not going to be any harm to the patient. And by using this material, we increase the transport of fluid from the wound side to the suction device. And by doing this, we have a storage inside the suction device to collect all the fluid. So all the fluid, meaning all the wound exudate, is completely removed from the wound. We won last year the Catalyst Award by being part of AIT, and fresh news, we have just completed at the moment the full industrial production of our device, and next week we will start an first in human clinical trial, therefore to proceed with a pivotal clinical trial and hopefully with a CE mark and FDA approval by the end of 2024. Thank you for listening to what Medico does.
Thank you very much, Dr. D'Angelo. Very, very interesting. We now pass to the mic to Dr. Corey Nichols Hadid. Her project was sponsored by the National Academy of Medicine.
Thank you. I want to thank the organizers and National Academy of Medicine. This has been a great opportunity, and I'm also not a doctor, but now a researcher, and this isn't in my bio, but my background actually was in patent and trademark law, and I'm a licensed attorney. But I went to visit the University of Rochester Department of Psychiatry almost 20 years ago to learn more about the connection between law, social determinants of health, resources, and community. And I never left, and I'm proud to say I'm now an assistant professor there. So the innovation that my group brings to the table is a curriculum for intergenerational mentoring across the lifespan. And this grew out of my work in violence prevention in the community. I have a colleague that is a specialist in social connections with older adults and has a Helping Older People Engaged lab. And we got talking with community partners in our city and our emergency department and trauma center about a health disparity in our community that was really being driven by community violence. So we came up with the idea to create a curriculum that would promote health and safety in our youth by leveraging the very valuable resource of older adults in our community. But what really drives this curriculum is the healthy aging aspect. So we're writing the curriculum with healthy aging in mind so that we're not just draining our older adults as a resource in our community. And we're very proud of this work. And what we've done is spent quite a bit of time in the community, which has really been important for the health equity aspect of this project to make sure we're bringing to the table the right people. I've been in the community for a long time doing violence research, and I've also been in the community working with older adults, but were we reaching the people that could benefit most from this social connectedness? And what we learned was that we're doing a good job, but we could do better. And I was introduced to a group called Common Ground Health in Rochester that was really focused on health equity. So, I just want to reflect on, bringing the right people to the table in the name of health equity. And what they taught me was that there were very active older adults in our community that could join our project, but they also were connected to the not so active older adults in our community. And one group that was pivotal in shaping our work was a senior adult community engagement corps. And they met with us, and we had beautiful, beautiful measures on healthy aging that were gold standard and very beautifully academically laid out. And they said, this is too long for us. That's just one example. So we've recalibrated, we've tweaked, and we're going to get ready to launch. The other aspect that we learned more about was the acceptability, and which was very exciting for me with my patent background, was that we could incorporate technology and that the older adults were very open to that. And it might actually be another way to level set equity in the community. We're just about to pilot, and that's because we did take the extra time in the community. We took the extra time to consider technology. And we are very, very proud of the work we're doing collaboratively and now in the community. And my last statement I'll just want to bring up is the cultural competence in our community. So that was another level set, was making sure that our curriculum spoke to our community and our target audience. Again, we had a lot of gold standards. We still use our specific aims as our North Star. We're still working towards a scientifically rigorous evaluation, but we're also balancing that with creativity and community voice. So I really appreciate the time and look forward to learning more about the other projects. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Nichols Hadid. I'm sure there will be many questions later about your work. Now we move to Dr. Pauline Strawn and Dr. Wensi Lim. The project was sponsored by the Singapore Ministry of Health.
Thank you so much, Jessica. I'm Pauline, and I'm a sociologist by training, and I come from Singapore Management University, and I run the Center for Research on Successful Aging. So Corey, you really should come play with us. At ROSA, that's what we call our center, we host a longitudinal cohort panel of 11,000 adults who are now between 53 and 78 years old. And we conduct monthly online surveys to investigate the gap between HALE and life expectancy. So we have lots of data. A shout out, anybody who wants to work with us, drop me a note. All right? I would love to introduce you to the data sets that we have, and we could do cross-cultural comparative work. So our recent work post-COVID focused on the importance and significance of social engagement. So Corey, right down your alley, right? And our anchor is on holistic well-being. Given the changing demographic profile of our seniors here in Asia, particularly in Singapore, we hypothesize that we will have to onboard new methodologies to engage our seniors post-retirement. The same old will not work anymore. And these methodologies must promote social agency in our seniors for them to be sustainable. So we had a pilot study done with a grant that we received, and we were guided by two key hypotheses: to design intervention programs that leverage social assets of our participants, and to promote intergenerational relations so that we will not have silos in community engagement. I will invite my colleague Wensi to give you details of the pilot. Wensi, you're muted.
Yeah, I
I
will share
love
more
saying that.
details about the methodology and the impact of our pilot study. So it was a 1-year pilot intervention study, and it has just concluded the study. So we recruited a very small group of participants from a neighborhood in Singapore. So 45 members were recruited from the Singapore Life Panel as a control group, and an additional 45 members were recruited with the help of a community partner and also through word of mouth. So total 90 members. And then in the first 2 months of the study, we focused on conducting focus group discussions with about 20 members of the study group. This was to seek their inputs on the types of activities that they would like to plan for their peers, and also have a sense of how they were keeping active on a daily basis post-retirement. So one insight we derived from the focus group was that these seniors were already staying active both physically and mentally, but they would like more interactions with the younger generations. Yeah, so when we proceeded to the intervention phase, it was important for us to involve our SMU undergraduates to partner the seniors as they organize their own programs to create opportunities for intergenerational interactions. Yeah. So when we first met up with the intervention group, the seniors were not used to suggesting new activities or taking a proactive role in planning for these upcoming activities. And over time, they really warmed up to this concept of becoming more vocal about the activities they were interested in, and worked together with the students who helped facilitate the logistics for the event. So examples of the events include a pickleball workshop organized participant who was actually already actively coaching racket sports, and he was keen to introduce this new sport to other members in the study. Another example was an intertidal beach walk that was suggested by participants who had heard about the experience but never had the chance to participate because other community groups did not organize such activities that they perceived to be of higher risk for seniors. Now, in all these programs, the undergraduate students were not only participating alongside the seniors, but also working with them to facilitate the planning of these events. We ran a survey post-intervention and found that the mean well-being score for the intervention group was actually higher than those in the control group. And the intervention group also had better perceptions towards young people, those aged between 18 to 25. Yeah, and some focus group participants liked being able to suggest activities, being given the opportunity to new things and interacting with students. So some participants also shared with us that they were now more willing to try and organize activities on their own for their peers, after going through this 1-year program with us, but preferably still with support from younger people. Yeah, so given the merits of the study, our goal now is to try and replicate this in other neighborhoods in Singapore. This will allow us to advance a new way of engagement for our seniors and normalize the idea that they too can play a part in creating programs that they enjoy and can contribute towards. Yeah.
So thank you, Winston. So what I love about our little pilot is it's a very simple concept, but it serves to unlock important assets in our community, and it's free, right? We don't need government intervention. We don't need money from anyone. We just need to empower the individuals in these communities to rise and take charge. So anybody else who would like to play with us, please contact me, because I think we would be able to share so many ideas. Thank you.
Fantastic. Thank you, Dr. Strawn and Dr. Lim. It's really interesting. We now hear from Dr. Jerry Tai, sponsored by the Academia Sinica. Dr. Tai. Sorry, I was muted. Let's actually move to Dr. Zidong Zhu, sponsored by the Singapore Ministry of Health. Hi, Dr. Zhu.
Okay. Thanks, Jessica, very much. Yeah. So I'm Zedong Zhou from Singapore. I'm from National Neuroscience Institute and Duke University Medical School. So I work on Parkinson's disease with focusing on the biomarkers and therapeutic targets. So the Parkinson's disease and Alzheimer's disease are the most common neurodegenerative disorders all the world and affect millions of people every year. So recently, the pathogenic non-coding repeat expansions in different genes are highlighted to be the cause of multiple neuron disorders, including Parkinson's disease and Alzheimer's disease. So in Singapore, about 1.5% of Parkinson's disease are caused by the repeat expansion in the NOTCH2-LC genes. And in Australia, about 5% of the PD patients are caused by the repeat expansions in genes. So in our current project, we are going to identify new therapeutic targets via the high throughput screening plus the human model validation studies. So in our project, we have established 3 kinds of disease models. So the first kind of model is knock-in mice model. We knock in the mice with NOTCH2-LC genes with different lengths of the repeat expansions, from the physiological length to the pathological length. Then we find the knock-in mice show phenotypes, and we find the neurodegeneration in the mice brain. So the second disease model is a human iPSC-derived human model. We have 10 healthy control iPSC line and 10 PD cell line with different lengths of pathogenic repeat expansions. So we differentiate the iPSC to human dopaminergic neurons and study the neuron compared with the mice model. So the third model is stable transfected dopaminergic neurons. We transfect neurons with NOTCH2-LC genes with different pathogenic length of the repeat with 99 repeat, and we find the stable cell line shows some defects of mitochondria and pathogenic protein aggregations and cell variability impairment. So we have already harvested dopaminergic neuron from the mice brain and sent to the NOVA gene for high throughput screening. Some interesting findings have been achieved. We verify the significant finding in our mice brain and confirm that some genes increased and some genes decreased, and shortlist something like 25 genes, which is highly related to the neurodegenerations. Then we differentiate to the human iPSC to the dopaminergic neurons, and we check the finding from the mice brain whether can be confirmed in our human dopaminergic neurons. So after that, we will further shortlist the gene list, and then to check whether we transfer the gene into our stable cell lines. We transfer cell line to increase the expression of genes or knock down the expression of genes, and can see whether the gene transmission can affect the mitochondrial functions, inhibit the protein aggregations, and improve the cell variability. So after finally, we will shortlist the genes which can improve the cell variability, and can maybe this gene can be the potential therapeutic targets for further investigations. So I think this is our whole project and current progress and future near future plans. Thanks.
Okay, thank you. Thank you very much. This very, very interesting work from all of our speakers. We now will pass to a discussion on your work. I'm looking to see if there are any questions from the audience, but I have a first question actually to kick us off. And I wanted to know specifically for the one of you that work in the community, like Corey and Pauline and Wency, how were you able to get into those community? Do you have facilitators or groups that you leverage to find? I mean, I can't believe you have 11,000 people. That sounds incredible. So can you speak more on how you reach the community?
Thank you, Jessica. Yes, so because we are survey machinery, right? So to put it very bluntly, so we recruited the Singapore Life panel through just hard work, door knocking from a random sample that we purchased from the Department of Statistics. So the recruitment is tough. Wen-Si, who is the center manager, cries every time I say we have to refresh because they grow older. Every few years we have to make sure we have the young old. So I think for us, there are two things that worked in our favor. The first is, I mean, we have the two big grants supporting the endeavor. So having a yearly set of vouchers, that our respondents will receive when they participate in the survey is an important incentive. I mean, it's a small honorarium. Each time they come on board to do a survey, it ranges from 10 Singapore dollars to 40 Singapore dollars, depending on how long we keep them online. So that's one. And the second, I think we have to work very hard to ensure that the work that we do make headlines, and we are able to show that the contributions from the Singapore Life panel move towards important policy work that benefits them, right, as members of the community. So in that aspect, the translational part of the work becomes very important. And we try very hard. The response rate is pretty decent. So it's a monthly survey. They go online to do it. We get on average between about 75% response. So that's really good for such a large cohort. And what Wen-Si has done in the last year is she brings the Singapore Life panel in small groups onto the campus, right? So they're not just an anonymous, group that lives in cyberspace, but we invite them in small groups to the campus to conduct focus groups with them. And when we host our annual symposium, which is coming up in October, we invite them to be members of the audience, in addition, to the academic, to mingle with the academic crowd. So we've been doing this for about 8 years now. So far, so good. So I guess we are lucky, we're very blessed because we are in the culture right now where, there's a lot of valorization for evidence-based research and the contribution to policy formation. So I think the cultural normative support must be there in the community. Otherwise, we won't be able to do this. Thank you, Jessica.
Absolutely. Corey, do you want to comment?
Yes, we have many similar themes in the ways that we connect with community, which isn't surprising. Very relationship-based, just basic human interaction. And it's really fun work, but as I talk to trainees and younger researchers, it is time-consuming and it can be challenging. So I have some guiding principles for community-based research that I print out and really revisit. And part of it is that we want the projects to always be mutually beneficial. Same thing Pauline's saying, wanting people to have buy-in, feel like they're contributing, having a mutual respect. As the big university in my city, they've been told to do a lot of things by different researchers, and there's, recognizing the history of some of the reasons why people may hesitate when they hear research and kind of trying to break down those barriers, because there have been a lot of cultural changes over the years. And, working with older adults, they have some distant experiences that maybe weren't so good. So one of the other principles is sharing the findings. So reporting back out, making people feel part of, the process from beginning to end, and always being able to accept criticism, constructive criticism well, and listening. It's harder than it sounds sometimes, but being like, okay, this is why we did it, and this is why it maybe doesn't work, or this measure is more cumbersome than we thought for you. So having those conversations, really listening to the community perspective. So I relied heavily on personal relationship building, but I know as we want to replicate our curriculum in other communities, I can't replicate myself. So, being able to guide from the learnings from my community and package it up in a way that others can use it, especially around cultural competence, I think has been useful. And again, just listening and being open. And it sounds like, we do have some similar themes across our work, and again, connecting with colleagues. So this has been a great opportunity to hear about work being done, in another time zone, but I see the parallels and we can all learn from each other. So, going to conferences, putting yourself out there on a panel, are ways that I've also collected data. And again, the focus groups, having a mixed method approach has been very helpful to be able to have interviews and focus groups, but also the quantitative data.
These are great points, and to me, they also speak to some of my work. I'm also an engineer, and the paradigms have shifted a little bit from, we develop system because they're cool and we think the community needs them, to really have to go to the community and listen to what the needs are before you develop, and also realize who is your community, what is it made of. And so the communication is such an important aspect to all this research, right? So great points. We have a question from the audience, and I leave it open to whoever wants to address it. So what are the key phases for ensuring health equity is incorporated into my work? Anybody wants to take this one on? What are the key phases for ensuring health equity is incorporated into my work? Anybody? I would start by saying, again, I repeat myself, but really knowing the first aspect for me is knowing who you are addressing your research to, right? Who is your community, the various cultural aspects, the even physiological and biological, and those are all important things to keep into account. That's, for me, paradigm at this point. So
anybody? Perhaps I could jump in.
Yes, please.
So at ROSA, we do large data and sets, right? And we have large data sets, and we do analysis at a more, community level. So what we cognate of is, while the survey data gives us the larger trends, and therefore it addresses the concerns of most people. So what we do is we pay attention to the gaps. So for example, during COVID-19, we were monitoring the various levels of well-being of the community. And one small group kept slipping off the chart. And this is a small group of older adults who were living alone. So we zoomed in on them. And of course, in terms of representation in the data set, they are a minority, right? Because Singapore is a very small country. And so by and large, those living alone form, just less than 10%. But we zoomed in on them. And this is where I think Wence's work becomes very important, because then when we do the qualitative interviews, we seek these out. We are very cognate that there are some groups that are not as well represented in the large data sets. And for these, we speak to them, on a more intimate level to try to better understand, what sort of boundaries and barriers they have. And then we try to advance them, to the best of our ability. So another research that we contributed to during the COVID crisis was vaccination, because we have a national vaccination program, as with all other countries. But there are some subgroups in the older adults who were not forthcoming, right, for the free vaccinations. And we had to understand why. What are the barriers for this group? And so we drove deeper to try to highlight the the kind of hurdles that they face. And then we just shared that information with the Ministry of Health to see if there were ways in which we could reach out to them, if they couldn't come to us. Thank you.
Mm-hmm. Oh, that's excellent point. Yes, there's nothing like a personalized touch to really help in this context. Yeah. I'm still looking for the chat to see if there are more questions, but I had a question for Dr. D'Angelo. And I was curious, you mentioned as well that you're also an engineer, and how did you came to this project, to the project that you described there about the wounds and the...
So yeah, it might answer the question from the other side. So we identified an unmet clinical need. So we spoke to clinical professionals, actually starting with my father, who's a surgeon. And we found out that really there was this unmet clinical need. Really the doctor wanted to use this kind of treatment, but the devices that are already and today on the market are not able to answer the unmet need because they're expensive, because they are unhandy to use, because they are not tailored to do what they want them to do. So treat surgical incision and act as a prophylactic treatment and reduce the risk of infection. So we identified that something was missing from the market, something was missing from the clinical practice, and there was a huge market potential for this kind of device. So we identified the problem, the issue. We found out how to fill the gap and produce a medical device, and we made it. So we didn't start from research, but we started from the market.
Got it. Great. I think this is almost a follow-up question on that that is in the chat. How can health equity be incorporated into projects from different disciplines that may not have previously prioritized health equity? For example, in biomedical research and technology-focused projects. Are you, sorry, I direct it to you again, Dr. D'Angelo. It looks to me that the device has also some affordability embedded into it. Hence, it can be translated in a community that doesn't have the same, earning potential or earning capability as others. Was that from the design point of view? Was that a decision that you made earlier on, or as you learned about your community, that was, you had to pivot?
Oh, exactly. We started from the beginning knowing that cost is the actual issue today. So if we wanted to produce something that would be the new standard of care, something that would be used by users in the market, we really should have acted on the cost. So we really should have made a device that was cost effective, not sacrificing the efficacy of the device. So we decided to shift from an electronic device, which is as the concurrent does, to a mechanical device. So we removed all the electronics. By removing the electronics, we reduced the cost. And therefore, this was our first and pivotal point. Then we discovered that since all those kind of devices are single use, they become surgical waste at the end of the treatment. So you imagine you have an electronic device with a battery, a control electronics, and a motor that after 1 week becomes waste and is not recycled. So by having a device, our device that is not electronical, we reduce the ecological impact of the device, which on another point might become interesting. And we also implemented the fact that we can use, the device is made of plastic. We also implemented the fact that we can use biopolymers to produce the device in order to further reduce the ecological footprint of this kind of device, since the device at the end of its lifetime will still become a health waste, and so nothing can be recycled. So we decided to reduce the ecological impact at the beginning of the lifetime. So we reduce the cost of the treatment to make it more accessible not only in Europe and US, but make it more accessible in all the world, so in all the other countries where today incisional negative pressure is completely out of business for cost reason. So we increase the usage base by reducing the cost of our device. We reduce the ecological footprint of our device by removing the electronics. And finally, by removing the electronics, our device is ready to be used in 3 seconds. You don't need to charge battery. You can use it wherever you want, in a field hospital, in the middle of emergency on war zones. It's really versatile. You really can use it everywhere you want. And this really is what we believe should be done in the next future. So we really should bring gold standard treatment that are wonderful. They work perfectly. We should really bring them to the vast majority of users. So out of Europe and US, not because we are better than that, but because most of the patients are out of Europe and US.
Right. No, it really speaks about the how this whole approach can be fast tracked with the thoughtful design process, right? Where initial consideration, of course, there is always iteration in science. There is always coming back to the table and
we started 3 years ago, and today we have the final device out of the production line. So it took us 3 years. It's not that long, but it's not that short anyway.
Yeah, no, absolutely. But asking the right question from the beginning definitely helps in many of these projects. So absolutely,
and having the right speakers to ask the right questions also.
Right, and consideration for the community and the diversity and talking about tech equity, of course.
Exactly.
So I should have asked if any of you has question for each other before everything. So I don't know if you have questions for the panel at this moment. I tend to talk too much. So any questions that you want to share with us? Maybe Dr. Zhu or Dr. Lin, or if not, I actually have a question for Dr. Zhu. I was wondering, we haven't heard from you in that aspect. So it seems that your project is a lot more into the basic science, what we call it, right? The fundamental science. So how are you integrating this thought of longevity and equity within your research?
So previously I was clinician in hospital, and later I do translational works on neurodegeneration. So in current project, I focus on Parkinson's disease, and especially on the repeat expansion induced neurodegeneration. So this is very interesting because recently we find that lots of disease can be associated with repeat expansions and can be induced by the Alzheimer's disease, Parkinson's disease, and MSA, ALSA, essential tremor. So lots of disease can be associated with repeat expansion. So in this project, so we are going to just to find the several targets. That means can be for further clinical usage. So this is a translational study. So we use a different animal models, something like human models and cell line models. Then we validate our findings and high throughput screening. That means to finally to find the several targets for potential future clinical usage. So this is I think is very interesting. So interesting and useful for our patients. Yeah. Thanks.
Absolutely. Well, that's interesting. So how far are you, do you think, from clinical translation? Is it in the next 5-10 years, or?
Maybe we currently find some drug candidate, and we have rescue in our Drosophila model very well. Then what I don't know, maybe we will validate in our mouse model and in our human model, and then we maybe take time to do it. So maybe it will be a pattern to be induced to be applied. I mean, later maybe 10, I think maybe 5 to 10 years, maybe work. Okay, yeah.
It's very hopeful for many of these individuals. It's such an important research.
Okay, thanks.
I had a question for Corey as well. While you were speaking, you mentioned that there is some fatigue. I mean, your population. It's the combination of the using individuals that are elderly with the youth. And you mentioned some fatigue that the projects may be perceived as too long. How did you find out? How was that? And you pivoted, right? How did you react to these findings?
So how we were able to efficiently gather a lot of data from the community was pushing into pre-existing groups. So I visited with, as I mentioned, the Senior Adult Community Engagement Group, which had been active in our community for a while, and also met with some of the violence prevention groups that had older adult members, and was able to present and show where we were at, and get their feedback that way. That was an efficient way, because convening a group for feedback would have been challenging. I also started to think about the resources I had at the university. We have an Office of Health Equity Research. So they have pre-convened groups and also faculty panels and others to present to. So I just started kind of going on tour with the pilot curriculum and just getting reflection that way. Another thing, a fun activity kind of that I call it, I thought it was fun, was we did an extensive lit search. So kind of like for my patent days, like what's out there and identifying gaps, and packaged it in a presentation to share with the community. So were you surprised by the gaps? Were you surprised by some of the ways some programs had done very extensive panels of measures? So I let the community groups react to a very scientific lit review. So that was kind of a fun way to fill both our buckets. So I was identifying gaps in the scientific community, and they were kind of filling it in with community gaps. So just thinking of creative ways to engage the community was really how we did that. And learning that, the research fatigue wasn't something we couldn't overcome. We could still collect really good data and do it in a way that was responsive to the community. So that was the other message. We didn't feel like we compromised the scientific integrity. We just had lots of conversations how to make it more doable.
Absolutely. Sounds, again, communication. That's, I think, the take-home message here. Okay. So we are coming to the end of our session. I don't know if any of you have some final remarks that you want to express, but first of all, I want to again thank the organizer. I congratulate you all on this award. It's really quite the honor, and I hope to get in touch with you. I'm sure I will get in touch with you. It sounds like you have a really research that synergize with mine, so I will contact you offline. And again, thank you very much. Final remarks from Dr. Pauline And Dr. Wensi?
We are heading towards a super aged society in Singapore and globally. So I think looking, ahead of us, there's a lot of exciting work to be done as we learn to receive this new norm. So I look forward to working with colleagues from different parts of the world, because I think this is a challenge that we should receive with anticipation and not fear. It's great that we're not dying off. So we want to be able to live well together. Thank you.
Thank you. Yes, absolutely. Wensi or Corey?
I would just end on that. I've learned from navigating different career paths that you can do scientifically rigorous work, serve your community, have fun, have social connectedness yourself. You really can do it all, and support health equity. And everyone on this panel has shown that, whether you're doing bench science or, we all have something to contribute to society. Each and every one of us on the panel is making change and improving health. So just echoing that encouraging word from Pauline that, we are aging and having longevity, and in our community, we say vitality. There's a lot of vitality. Even if you're homebound, there's still a lot to contribute. So very exciting. This is very exciting work to be involved in.
Thank you. Absolutely great points. Dr. D'Angelo, final remarks?
I would like to thank you everybody for this opportunity to showcase our innovation and our invention that we showcased last year during the Catalyst Award, and finally we have the opportunity to present it live, and see you soon into the hospital with our drive device. Hopefully not on everybody of us, but hopefully we will be on the market soon, and we will help the community to reduce unwanted infections and unwanted complications, so to have a healthier wound healing.
Thank you. Finger crossed. Good luck to you. And Dr. Zhu, final remarks?
Yeah. Okay. I think I need to thank the NAM very much, because the funding support our research. So I work on the Parkinson disease and other neurodegenerative disorders. The diseases are incurable, and no drugs and therapy can cure the progressive neurodegeneration in the patient brain. So I think we are struggle to find a solution to benefit our patients. So this funding support is very important, or not very much. So we can initiate our study and find very interesting primary results, and we can push us way to move forward to the better results and better findings to finally benefit our patients in the future. Thanks very much.
Okay, fantastic. So thank you all again. Thank you, Michelle, Beatrice, and everybody that organizes the meeting. And I look forward to hear more from you. Bye.
Thanks.
Again.